Welcome to Straight Talk and Retirement, your no-hype source for financial advice and making informed choices about your retirement plan. Get on the phone to talk today at 314-931-5877 or text your question to 84126.
The opinions voiced in this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, and financial advisor or tax advisor prior to investing. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Private Advisor Group, a registered investment advisor. Private Advisor Group and JBL Financial Services, Inc. are separate entities from LPL Financial.
Now, here are your retirement coaches, Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
Well, hello, St. Louis. Wake up and thaw out, and welcome to Straight Talk on Retirement, your live and local St. Louis's favorite financial call-in show. I'm Jeff Lapidus, president of JBL Financial Services. Our offices are located in beautiful, chilly, downtown Olivet, Missouri. I'm a 40-plus year veteran of the financial services area, a fee-based financial planner and wealth manager. And I joined this week and every single week by my very favorite, oldest, just got engaged daughter, Erin Lapidus, who also is a fee-based financial planner and wealth manager.
What's going to happen when you have to call me something else, my last name?
Honey, I thought we already negotiated that.
Oh, is this where you buy me the apartment building in order to keep my... Okay.
You got a stage name, so you're all good. So, you know, and I'm old, so I'm probably going to repeat your last name a lot of times. But anyways, we help our clients make smart choices about their money.
The way we do that is by designing a game plan, a written step-by-step strategy, a real game plan with several goals in mind.
First is to protect, preserve, and prudently grow the assets our clients have taken their entire lifetimes to accumulate. Second is to deliver a reliable stream of income, one that they can count on, so they can do all the things they'd like to do during retirement.
And third is cost-effectively addressing their health care needs, like helping individuals enroll in Medicare and choosing the right plan to supplement their medical coverage.
And then when they're done enjoying their assets during their lifetime, we show them how to pass them on to the people they love, whether it's their spouses or children, grandchildren, churches, or charities, whoever it might be, with Uncle Sam or the tax courts taking a big bite out of their money. And as their wealth managers, Aaron and I watch their money every single day to make sure they're staying on track. And that's why they call us the retirement coaches. Well, babe, good morning.
Good morn.
It's another wonderful day in the neighborhood. We want to take the time to thank everyone for tuning in with us today in our 2-hour extravaganza, as we like to think about it. We do have a lot of things on our minds. What's more important is what's on yours. Phone lines are open. We're live and local. We'd love to hear from you. 931-5877, star 5877 from your cell phones, or 84126 from the ever-popular text line. And just as a reminder, all of our clients are folks that are just like you. They're our listeners. They're 55 and older. They would like to retire, or they're already retired. As Aaron mentioned, we help create a game plan for them so they can have a fun and hopefully financially secure and worry-free retirement. And before we get into taking our text messages and calls this morning, we do want to remind everybody that there are lots of ways for you to keep in touch with us during the week.
That's right, and the best way to do that is to log on to our website, jblfinancial.com. In the upper right-hand corner, you can contact us by clicking the Contact Us button, or in the lower left-hand corner, a little pop-up box will appear that says Sign Up, and you can sign up for our monthly newsletter. We send that out by email every single month, or we're happy to mail it to you if necessary. We have a brand new February newsletter to discuss.
Woohoo!
But before I get into the newsletter, I also did want to mention that for all of those individuals signed up for our newsletter, we're beginning a webinar series next month. And the first topic that we're going to cover is, you know, what are you potentially looking for in a coach? What should you consider when hiring a retirement coach or a financial planner? So there's a link available already in our February newsletter email for those of you that would like to sign up, and we'll be sending out another in the next few weeks.
It sounds like fun.
But to get back to the newsletter, the first topic of our February letter is new businesses may be good news for the economy. So it appears that quite a few individuals have started their own businesses over the pandemic and throughout the last year. And, you know, obviously new business activity always bodes well for the economy.
Yes, it does. And we know that small businesses do really represent about 70% of the U.S. economy, so that's good.
The next article is When Two Goals Collide, and this is not unique but common, which is balancing college and retirement preparation. So you might be, you know, as your children are getting older, you're hoping to plan for their college expenses while still considering your own retirement, and those college bills can sometimes become excessive. So it's important to kind of try figuring out the path to balance both.
Very good. Our third article is smoothing market ups and downs,
which is a timely topic.
Yeah, it sounds like you need Dramamine the way things have been going lately because the markets have been a little bit rocky. And I think really what the purpose of this article is to get to the fact that choosing the right time when to buy or sell can be stressful and many times also counterproductive. And I think this is especially important because most of our clients do their primary investing through their retirement plans, in which case they're using mutual funds. And as we know, those funds trade at the end of every business day. So in reality, you need to make your decision before the beginning of the business day, or you're one day behind.
Absolutely. And the final article is Plan Ahead to Help Ease the Burden of Tax Season.
Yeah, really good. Obviously, this is like anything else in life. Getting organized is extremely important. Once you're organized, you should be able to get this done as quickly as you emotionally feel like you're ready to do so.
You know how many times this week I've heard, I'm in no rush to pay the government.
Well, that's funny because the truth is you already should have paid them. So
right.
if you've underwithheld for taxes, it's a good idea to get that money in as quickly as possible so that you stop the clock from interest and possibly penalties from mounting up for you.
Exactly.
Which is good. We do call that the Coach's Corner. Always available for you. Just go to our website, jblfinancial.com. Click on that Coach's Corner floating icon, which is on virtually every page, or go to the bottom left-hand corner. And maybe the most important thing we have, I think, at our website, other than our webinars, and we do have lots of fun calculators and articles to read, is the Contact Us section, right?
That's right. In the upper right-hand corner, you can click Contact Us, and you can use that opportunity to ask a question if you'd prefer not to be on the air, or request a coaching session, make a comment, whatever you'd like. We'll try and get back to you within 24 hours.
Exactly. And again, Aaron and our staff do keep those newsletters updated for your viewing, printing, or reading convenience. And we say again, we'd love to add you to the thousands that we're sending this out by email every single month, which is great. Again, our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you. 314-931-5877, star 5877 from your cell phones, or 84126 from the text line. Babe, do we have anybody waiting in the queues this morning?
We already have a text question. I always love the 10 o'clock hour because that is the original hour of the show. But this 9 o'clock hour is really fun. Everybody's like revved up to go every week. It's pretty cool.
Let's rock and roll.
Good morning. Good morning. Since this is tax season, what are some key strategies to eliminate taxes in retirement?
Okay. Do you want to attack this first, and I'll back you up on it?
Sure. I think that this is a great question, but I also think that people don't realize that you're already eliminating quite a bit of taxes simply by retiring, right? In your current situation, most likely you're earning a salary. You have to pay your payroll taxes. You have all of your withholdings. You are usually in your highest income earning years, and you're obviously not living off of the gross income that you have. You're really living off of the net. So if we fast forward to retirement, we should fund to the net of your pay, not the gross. Therefore, you're automatically going to be in a significantly lower tax bracket in most cases. Social Security, even in what you would call the worst case scenario, only 85% of it is taxable at your income tax bracket. And, if you have the opportunity, maybe one of the key strategies I would recommend in approaching retirement is making sure that after you've saved pre-tax, that you start to create some after-tax savings for yourself, whether that be in a Roth 401k, or simply in an after-tax account. Then that way you'll have an extra pool of money when you have large expenses to come up that won't bump you into another bracket.
Yeah, babe, I think that's fabulous advice. And just to expand on that a little bit, taxes are an algebra problem. And for folks that are in retirement, I think they have two constraints that they want to consider. Obviously, marginal tax rates versus effective tax rates. And we know that a married couple filing jointly can earn really almost $90,000 before they leave the 10% effective tax rate. The second thing is Medicare Part B premiums. If you're bringing home significantly more, either because of one spouse is continuing to work, or you have pension, you have Social Security, et cetera, maybe farm income like we have with many clients, you've got a $174,000 limit so that those Medicare Part B premiums don't rise. So working with this algebra problem, the timing of payments, the source of payments, is one way that you can certainly maximize what you're doing. We think that it makes a lot of sense. The other thing is charitable contributions. If you're currently itemizing deductions, charitable contributions are something that you can use to reduce your tax liability and, frankly, help improve the world. On the other side of the fence, if you're somebody that is taking required minimum distributions, we know that if we make those charitable contributions directly from your IRA for you, that'll reduce that taxable amount dollar for dollar. And those are some pretty good ones. So all that being put aside, I think, Aaron, what she might not have mentioned is what I like to say is Dad's official rule number one.
Oh, the number one rule, aside from stacking is not cleaning, is
yes.
Never pay taxes on money you're not consuming.
Exactly. Unless you're in a situation where, as Aaron mentioned, you need to build up that reservoir or cash trove that you have for emergencies and other purposes. Don't withdraw excess amounts of money today to do that because you're paying taxes. And I think it's important to realize that for whatever reason, and I tend to call this marketing purposes, okay? But paying taxes is an obligation for all citizens. It's the way that we keep our government dysfunctional at some level or not, depending on what party you're in, to keep functioning. And so it's important to do that. Obviously, Uncle Sam doesn't put people in jail. They just take they take more money because you're not paying the appropriate amount of taxes. It's all about money.
Well, I think that, right, and I think part of this is you're going to pay taxes regardless. You either pay them now, which is usually more expensive for you because you're in a higher tax bracket to start, or you pay a consistently low amount in the 10 to 15% range for the majority of our clients ongoing throughout retirement. Well, yes. 10 to 15% is significantly less than 30+%, which many people find themselves in, as you mentioned, Dad, alluding to maybe taking pre-tax assets and converting them to after-tax assets in preparation for retirement. If that's something that's incredibly important to you, why not just wait until you're in a lower tax bracket to do some of that, as opposed to piling that money on top of an already higher income. So there are additional strategies that can be utilized. They're not necessarily the best fit for everyone, but it is important to consider. You're going to have to pay taxes at one point or another. Why don't we try and minimize them as much as possible? We can't really eliminate them.
Honey, you make some really good points, and I would say just sort of amplifying those a little bit. The decision about paying off a mortgage, as an example, especially if you have one that's significant, let's say over $50,000, is an important one for many reasons. Obviously, if you can reduce your outflows because of those mortgage payments, it makes your inflows more valuable. But doing it in a lump sum sometimes doesn't make sense because you could be effectively paying more taxes than you need to. The only other thing I would suggest here is that, and I was kind of getting this before, but I sidetracked myself. When you're over 60, sometimes that happens. Is that at the very end of the day, our experience has been is that 90+% of our clients are in a lower tax bracket at retirement. They're never in the same bracket. They're usually in a lower bracket. And we know that federal income tax rates generally have been, and they do continue to be, a political football. One side likes to raise them, one to confiscate more money. One side likes to lower them because they think that people should have more of their money. At the end of the day, the government's still getting their money.
Well, sure, and also when we even talk about the politicalization of taxes, they're never talking about the 10 and the 15% bracket. They're talking about should we make the 33% bracket 36% again? So in most cases, you're not going to be in that situation. So even if we talked about this often when the Biden administration was considering a new tax bill, even if at bare minimum the government decided to revert back to the pre-Trump tax cuts regime, we're talking about a 2% difference in most brackets cases. So
yes, very, very small amounts. You're talking about the 10% effective bracket going to 12. And what I like to say is, who cares? Never plan on what could happen in the future with taxes. Just makes no sense because the truth is that you're wrong. I mean, you're always wrong. You're wrong, and then you're right, and then you're wrong. Will taxes go up in the future? Of course they will.
But and then they'll come back down again.
Too, but then they'll come back down too. So we don't do our planning on that. In general, we found that most people that are toting this, it's really because they need to get people in the door. We obviously don't have those issues. So it's all good. Again, our phone lines are open. We'd love to hear from you, 931-5877, star 5877 from your cell phones, or 84126 from the text line. That was a dynamite text question to start with.
Right? We have another great one, but I was thinking because we're so close to our first break that maybe we just take it a couple minutes early and come back to answer this excellent text question.
Sounds fabo. I'm Jeff Lapidus, the retirement coach.
I'm Aaron Lapidus, the retirement coach.
We're willing and waiting and wanting to answer your questions at 931-5877, star 5877 from your cell phones, or 84126 from the text line. Let's fill those up, and we'll be right back.
Cardinals single game tickets for the 2022 season are on sale now and start at just $6. The schedule is filled with great matchups, including 2 Cubs weekends and a rare weekend visit from the New York Yankees. The promo schedule is packed with fan favorites too, like jerseys, bobbleheads, legendary player tributes, and so much more. There's something for everyone in the 2022 season. Get your tickets now at Cardinals.com.
Roses are red, the Cardinals are too, and have we got a gift idea just for you. This year, treat your Valentine to dinner and a game with Cardinals all-inclusive tickets. From now through Valentine's Day, purchase all-inclusive tickets as low as $59 to see the Cards in April and May. All-inclusive tickets feature premium seats, a full buffet, and complimentary bar service. Hit a home run with your sweetie this Valentine's. For offer details, visit Cardinals.com.
I'm Jennifer Blome. Did you know that all the funding for the Salvation Army Adult Rehabilitation Center comes from sales at the 5 local Salvation Army Family Thrift Stores and the Vehicle Donation Program? Salvation Army receives no government funding, and the men are not charged for the 6-month residential rehab work therapy program. With your donations and shopping at the stores, you're supporting those who are trying to rebuild their lives. Visit satruck.org for more information. That is satruck.org.
In Town and Country, there is a community located on 21 beautiful rolling acres, making it hard to believe it's a retirement community. It's Marie de Villa, offering a wide variety of senior living options. They've enjoyed consistent management and ownership. Explore all of the amenities that Marie de Villa offers by going online to mariedevilla.com or call 636-227-5347. Marie de Villa has it all.
This is Jeff Lapidus, the retirement coach. Wouldn't it be great to have a game plan, a real strategy, so that no matter what was going on in the stock market, the economy, or the world, that you could be confident about your retirement? Wouldn't that be great? If you're within 5 years of retirement, call me today at 314-863-0008. That's 314-863-0008. Or send me an email, jeff@jblfinancial.com, to arrange your free coaching session. Let's get started on your retirement game plan today.
Now back to Straight Talk and Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here's Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
That's right. We're back here on the Big 550 KTRS Talk Radio St. Louis. I'm Jeff Lapidus, the retirement coach.
I'm Aaron Lapidus, the retirement coach.
And we are willing, we're waiting, and we're wanting to answer your questions at 931-5877, star 5877 from your cell phones, or 84126 from the text line. Well, I have my vote in, babe.
What's your vote on?
I think you did the coaching session invitation / commercial better than me.
What? After I was given such a hard time on the air just mere weeks ago, you've changed your mind. You've listened to yourself now? Is that what?
Well, I'm just a happy pappy. That's all I can say.
Oh, no, that's not fun. I want to win for victory's sake, not because you gave me the win.
Oh, my God. You are my child. What can I say? It's great. And again, we'd love to hear from you as we're enjoying our banter together. I guess it's okay. It's been a month.
What's been a month? Oh, yes, our 2-hour-long show.
Yeah, it's been a month, and we haven't seen each other in about 6 weeks. So
I think it's been longer than that now, Dad, hasn't it?
Could be.
You've been gone for so long.
And I'm coming back.
Well, that's right. At the end of February, you'll return to us. Oh, my goodness. We are seeing all kinds of text questions flooding in. This
Fabulous.
is great.
Let's do them.
Okay, so from before the break, we had an excellent text question, which was, what is the best way to pay for long-term care? Our financial person has advised using an annuity. It's expensive, but if all the money isn't used, our heirs could receive it. So this text question is in reference to using a financially based long-term care product that uses an annuity as its base. So using, in many cases, it's a fixed annuity with a long-term care a rider added to it.
And I think it's important here to note, before you continue, honey, that the funds to purchase this annuity are coming from non-IRA assets, non-qualified assets. You can't do it inside your IRA. That's
right. So in many cases, this means that and the reason for that is because long-term care benefits, if structured properly, come to you tax-free, just like your health care benefits do. So unfortunately, for many people, this is not a very viable option because you need a large sum of after-tax money that you're not devoting to anything else or haven't planned to devote to anything else. However, these products are varied just as many annuity products are, so it's difficult to specifically discuss the expenses that this texter is mentioning, but we've seen them structured in many ways, and there are other alternatives for long-term care, which can be not inexpensive, but not as expensive as you might think. Many times when we are talking about when long-term care discussions are brought up, people are thinking about funding the entirety of a long-term care benefit, meaning if you have a loved one or you've known of a loved one that's needed long-term care, sometimes those expenses can run up to $6,000 to $7,000 a month. If you sit down with an insurance agent that's looking at helping you to purchase a long-term care product, a more traditional option that's called comprehensive, meaning you would have coverage if you stayed at home, if you were admitted to a facility, either short-term or for extended stay with 24-hour skilled nursing or without. These products usually they're considering saying, well, let's fund $7,000 a month for you. But in reality, we know that if we look at your entire financial picture, you don't need to fund to the full benefit, because all of the other cash flow that you were receiving before either you or your spouse became ill won't stop. You'll still receive, if you are eligible for pensions, your Social Security benefit won't stop. If you are taking distributions, which most likely you will be from your retirement accounts at this point, those funds won't stop either. So we really need to consider your entire income before we determine what's the deficit that you might find yourself in if you needed to add such an expense to your situation.
Very nice. And again, I think that there are lots of ways to skin this cat. We know that if you're eligible and you can purchase long-term care insurance, it makes sense for you to do that. There are things like return of premium riders, which cost more money, but give you an opportunity to recover that money at death if you don't use it. I think at the end of the day, these annuity contracts, which we like, and we've obviously have put these in place with other clients, is really in a situation where someone has excess cash reserves, maybe CDs or things that are renewing. They're having more cash available to them than they need to fund their vault, their emergency cash fund. And that maybe what's happening is that this annuity, and again, as Aaron mentioned, it's usually a fixed annuity, which means that the principal isn't subject to market risk. It's just the interest is then being used and paid, and that's actually what the insurance company is retaining, in theory, over time, to pay for those long-term care premiums. So if you're not using it, you don't have to lose it, which is a good thing. At the same time, especially in today's low interest rate environment, these things certainly can make a little bit more sense for you. What's important, again, is taking the right approach, which I think Aaron has really laid out very nicely. How much cash flow is required by the non-institutionalized spouse, one that isn't chronically ill, for them to maintain their lifestyle? What's the cost of the care at a facility, adding those two together and then saying, hey, what are my sources? And how much am I really short? Because long-term care insurance is actually another form of disability insurance. So we're talking about creating cash flow where cash flow is needed. So great text question. And frankly, this was one of the topics that we were going to talk about a little bit more in detail this morning, but they beat us to the punch, right, babe?
That's right, which just means we get to save our discussion for another time because the text questions continue to flood in.
Beautiful.
I'm enrolled in my company's 401k plan, putting in 15%. I just lowered that to 14% and started putting in 1% into the Roth account. I will be 64 on Valentine's Day, so looking to retire next year. My husband and I have been told we are both in a position to retire. My question is, at this point, should I have more coming out of my paycheck into the Roth to get that built up?
Interesting question. And I would think, frankly, I think what my first question would be, and again, we didn't do the analysis here, is if you're only looking at one more year as an example before you're considering retiring, what I would be wondering is, do you really need to be making tax-deductible pre-tax contributions to your 401k at all? Maybe all of that money should be going possibly to the Roth. Again, you'll be paying some income taxes because it's an after-tax contribution, but you'll be filling up that tax-free well. And the cool part is that if you already have an existing Roth, if you were to roll those Roth 401k assets into that Roth IRA, you will have already satisfied the 5-year rule, which is that the interest for it to be income tax-free, that account has to exist for at least 5 years.
And you have to be over 59 and a half, which the texter is.
Yes. So, yeah, I mean, the answer is it's a good idea. I guess my question would be 1% doesn't seem like a whole lot of money.
Mm-mm.
You know, and I was talking to one of our clients yesterday during a coaching session who was having a discussion where she doesn't actually have access to a employee contribution to a profit-sharing plan. And so, you know, her goal was, and again, very similar to our texter, she was saying, I'm going to be retiring in a year. What else should I be thinking about doing? I'm really building up my after-tax trove of cash. In her particular case, you know, my question was, well, you know, you have a decent income. You're earning somewhere in the area of about $100,000 a year. Shouldn't we really be making tax-deductible IRA contributions? Since you do see the possibility of being able to fill up your vault, i.e. emergency fund, sufficiently at that point. So there's lots of ways to skin this cat. I would certainly say to our texter, 1% seems to be not a real significant amount. I mean, if you're earning $100,000, that would be $1,000. Not a whole lot of money. I would certainly say if you're in a position to do that, let's increase the contribution amount.
And not only that, I mean, based on what the texter mentioned, that they were told they are in a position to retire, using that information, if that's the case, why put necessarily more into a pre-tax account when you could, if you wanted to, just flip that and say, let's put in as much as we can into the after-tax account, being able to pull it out tax-free. If you already have a Roth, it would, just like you mentioned earlier, Dad, it could start. You might be eligible to start making withdrawals from that account right away without any penalty. Or, you know, if you already have enough assets on the one side, maybe letting this wait for 5 years could be a good option for you. So it just depends on your situation. But like you said, 1% seems low, and since you have the opportunity to contribute, what is it, $25,000 a year into your employer-based 401k plans, that gives you a lot of room.
You know, honey, I think it's interesting now that I'm kind of noodling on this a little bit while you're talking. You know, one of the first text questions we had was about income taxes.
Right.
And I would say that if you think about this person that's texted us, I mean, if they're putting in 15% of their pay, they're really knocking down their income rather significantly.
Indeed.
When you add FICA to that, and probably healthcare premiums, you know, they, like many people, may be seeing as much as 35 to 40% of their gross income going to these purposes. So the truth is they're going to drop significantly in their effective tax rate in retirement, and that's really real normal. So, again, I think that ultimately, as you and I have discussed, having money in a Roth IRA isn't a bad deal.
Mm-mm.
Because, again, it's another reservoir that, frankly, you can use for, and we see most of our clients using this for one of two purposes. Either A, what they're doing is they've got a place where they can accumulate money and then use it for large purchases like cars, like home remodeling, etc. Or what they're doing is they bought into this concept that they would like to assist their children and pass more of their assets on tax-free to them. So those monies that, you know, anyone that's a beneficiary receives from a Roth IRA is tax-free to them as well. So those are kind of the two things. So I would say instead of dipping your toe in here to our texter, you might want to consider putting your whole foot in.
Right.
If you feel like you're getting good advice, which it sounds like, from your current advisor, go back and say, hey, do I really need to make any contribution to a pre-tax account, as Aaron mentioned? And then B, how much can I and should I be directing to my Roth?
Right.
Good question.
We have another tax question. It's tax day here on
Tabo.
Straight Talk. We are now retired, and with our current income status, we are required to pay quarterly taxes to both Missouri and the IRS. Over these last couple of years, we are seeing some long-term gains as a result of stock sales by our investment firm. Should we be calculating quarterly taxes for these gains and be including these in our quarterly payments? If so, what happens if we see losses later in the year?
Well, I think the answer is yes, and yes to the first question. And the second question is, woohoo! Right?
Right. You're able to write against your gains at the end of the year if you show losses.
Yes. And unfortunately, as you know, I guess what I'm hearing here is that this particular texter isn't having any or sufficient amounts withheld from their sources of income, whether it's Social Security or a pension or IRA distributions, to cover their tax liability, which is forcing them to do quarterlies. Because I would say, to the best of my knowledge, less than 1% of our clients actually do quarterlies. We're actually doing those tax withholdings for them, and we've planned that as a part of each one of their distributions.
That's a good point.
Yeah. And again, it isn't unusual, at least what I think we've seen here, and I'm sure you agree with me, is that the one area that folks do fail to have taxes without, especially federal taxes, is from their Social Security benefits.
Right, because you can't do that upon initial election in most cases when you're doing it online.
Right. And so what happens here is that, as you can imagine, you've got anywhere from generally from a $20,000 to a $30,000 taxable situation, of which 85%, as Aaron mentioned, generally is taxable. So you're looking at maybe $24,000 a year. Well, you owe $2,400. You got two people that are doing Social Security. Woohoo! Now we're up to about $5,000. So I just had this conversation yesterday with one of our clients who recently had moved to another sunnier part of the country, North Carolina. And the decision that we came to was as a way to deal with this issue for them in lieu of them doing quarterly deposits was we just increased the tax withholding that they're doing from our distributions to them by $5,000 a year. A little more flexible. They didn't have to go back to Social Security, even though they could have.
Sure.
To actually initiate tax withholding, but they felt like, you know what, that's an easier idea. There isn't any charge from us or our custodian
to make those
withhold that money and send it to
right.
Uncle Sam. Right.
Absolutely.
Because quarterlies are no fun.
Certainly not. So there might be a way for you to avoid the quarterlies, depending upon how your income is structured.
I mean, and the other thing is that since most of these things, at least our clients, it's one of those, they're complaining and nobody's listening.
Goodness, we are always listening.
Well, of course we are, but when they're making money, especially in the last couple of years, where we've seen large capital gains distributions happening in their mutual funds and their either trust or brokerage non-IRA accounts, since those are happening really at that moment, at the very end of the year, making a quarterly or making a special withholding at that particular time doesn't create any tax issues for them or any interest or penalty issues for them, because they're really doing it usually within 30 to 45 days of when the event occurred. And That's the other important thing. So, again, Aaron and I aren't CPAs. We don't give tax advice. specifically, we also don't prepare tax returns for folks. But we know enough to be dangerous.
Well, that's perfect to lead into our next text question, which is, Dear Jeff and Aaron, do you prefer that your clients use a tax preparer that you recommend, or should they continue to use the person that they have used for many years? This is a great question, and I would say that if you're already working with a tax preparer, we're happy to interface with any specialist or other professional that you're already working with. However, if you're someone that needs some additional help or you don't have an individual preparing taxes for you, we also have referrals that we can make to individuals that we've worked with in the past.
Yeah, I think it comes out to, like any other professional, if you have a comfort, if you have trust in that person's advice and what you've received in the past, there's absolutely no reason to change horses in the middle of the race. Stay with who you have, and we're happy to work with anyone. I would find it's interesting, though, that most of our clients, and I would say, I want to say we're probably in, what do you think, honey, 70 to 80% of those that come visit with us, they've either outlived their attorneys or they've moved out of town and they need new legal counsel. And we're fortunate in that we've really accumulated a stable of very good and capable attorneys that we've worked with clients over the years, and we're happy to make those referrals as well.
Absolutely. Well, it's already time for our second break of the hour.
It's wonderful. Time is flying, and we're having fun. Let's fill up those phone and text lines, 931-5877, star 5877 from your cell phones, or 84126 from the hot as a firecracker text line. I'm Jeff Lapidus, the retirement coach.
I'm Aaron Lapidus, the retirement coach.
Don't touch that dial. We'll be right back.
This is Mariah, third generation at Newsteaders Fine Jewelry. Buying an engagement ring can be intimidating. At Newsteaders, we ensure complete understanding of your purchase. We offer a choice in both lab and mine-grown diamonds and are able to work with any budget. Let our family help educate you on your choice at Big Ben and Doherty Ferry or at wowdiamonds.com.
Individual rates, coverage, offerings, and savings may vary, subject to terms and conditions, not available in all areas. If you're a small business owner, listen up. Pi Insurance wants to give you one of those aha moments, the kind that could save you money. Workers' comp is probably one of the biggest costs you face. But did you know that insurance providers have flexibility in setting their prices? That's right, but many don't bother giving small businesses the savings you deserve. Instead, you can get lumped in with other businesses and overcharged. Pi Insurance was created to change that. With Pi, you get a quote tailored specifically to your business, and you could save up to 30% with no hassle and no hidden fees. And with helpful representatives just a call away, it's easy to understand why Pi is rated excellent by customers on Trustpilot. Take 3 minutes to see how much you could save with Pi Insurance. Ask your agent for Pi or go to trypi.com. That's TRYPIE.com.
In Town and Country, there is a community located on 21 beautiful rolling acres, making it hard to believe it's a retirement community. It's Marie de Villa, offering a wide variety of senior living options. They've enjoyed consistent management and ownership. Explore all of the amenities that Marie de Villa offers by going online to mariedevilla.com or call 636-227-5347. Marie de Villa has it all.
This is Aaron Lapidus, the retirement coach. Wouldn't it be great to have a game plan, a real strategy, so that no matter what was going on in the stock market, the economy, or the world, you could be confident about your retirement? Wouldn't that be great? If you're within 5 years of retirement, call me today at 314-863-0008. That's 314-863-0008. Or send me an email at aaron@jblfinancial.com to arrange your free coaching session. Let's get started on your retirement game plan today.
Now back to Straight Talk and Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here's Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
Are you back there, Dad? Haven't returned from break? Still enjoying your quiet time over there? Guess he's not on. So I will continue on without for a moment, because he's enjoying that warm California weather that all of us wish that we could have. The next question was actually in reference to our previous text question regarding Roth 401k contributions. Can my company keep me from adding all of my contributions to the Roth? The great news is no. You could make your full 401k contributions directly to your Roth 401k, but the important thing to remember is just that your employer's contribution, so if they are participating in a match, those matching funds are going to go to the traditional pre-tax 401k. So just so you are aware, you'll be seeing some contributions on both sides, even if you're only making Roth contributions.
Very good, babe.
Oh, you're back. Welcome.
Well, I was there. I think Eric put me on mute for the purpose of so I could ruminate over that I was hating you because I loved the way you did that last one.
Hating me? Oh, from the commercial. That's right. Listening to the dulcet tones of my voice mesmerized you. I've got it.
Yeah, there you go. Well, anyway,
there you go.
I love that. So your mom just texted me because she's in the other room saying you're not on.
Well, it's nice to know that someone's listening out there.
So instead of getting to see you in your happy face, I get to see the dog's happy face. So what can I tell you?
Cannot be replaced.
Yeah, we're having a lot of fun. We're waiting for the coyotes to run past our window this morning.
My goodness.
Certainly they don't have as much fun in the snow as they obviously were doing here. But that was a great text question. Do we have any more, babe, or are we going to get to our first subject?
Of course we have more text questions.
Fabo. Well, let me give out the numbers again. 931-5877, star 5877 from your cell phones, or 84126 from the text line.
So I don't know if the listeners are also imagining this, but I can hear like birds and things in the background. So it sounds like you're like somewhere tropical and nice, whereas we are all covered in a foot of snow.
Well, I think we just broke 55 degrees, so yeah.
No one's amused.
Thank you.
From the texter, I'm 78 and did not take my required minimum distribution in 2020 due to the moratorium. So if everyone remembers, the government gave everyone that had a required minimum distribution to take in 2020 a pass due to COVID. However, that's since recommenced. They did not extend that any further. Am I likely to be subject to a penalty for 2021 if I haven't had enough taxes withheld? We are seeing some long-term gains as a result of stock sales I'm sorry. I've combined two text questions. Let me return. I'm 78 and didn't take my RMD. Am I likely to be subject to the tax penalty in 2021 if I haven't had enough taxes withheld because of dividends and interest received?
Can I do a sound effect here?
Don't.
Actually, no.
No.
You're really talking about two things here. Number one is if you don't take as much as you're supposed to on your requirement distribution, you're subject to a 50% tax penalty.
But not in this particular instance because...
That's correct. That's right. And so, again, if you do make a withholding and you feel like it's important to do so before you're filing your tax return, you probably are going to be okay.
Right, because your required minimum distribution is at 78 is probably in the 4 to 5%, above 4, but closer to 5% is my guess. Is that about right?
Yeah, babe.
So you only are the times in which you get into trouble with withholdings is when I believe you have to withhold 80. You have to have paid 80% of the tax liability that you owe. So in most cases, you're not going to run into that simply because of the required minimum distribution differential between 2020 and 2021.
Yes, and we're kind of getting into the technical. You should ask a qualified tax professional question
Absolutely.
on that. But I think that was good general information.
All right. Shall I continue?
Sure. I think it's fun. I mean, we always love to say what's more important is on what the people's minds are. We want to get to answer those questions, and we'll get to ours eventually if we have time. And we've got about 5 minutes left for this hour.
That's right. Oh, also, a texter did point out, which I think is important since we were talking about required minimum distributions, that the age has been increased to 72 as opposed to 70. That happened in conjunction with a lot of the changes that the Trump administration made, so it might have slipped under people's radar. But that is correct. If you are 70 this year, you don't have a required minimum distribution to take. You get to wait until 72.
And if you're 72 any day during the year, you're subject to the RMD for the whole year because the RMDs run on calendar years, not on your birthday years.
Yes, that is also an excellent thing to point out. All right, I'm hesitant to read this next text question, but I'll do it anyway. I would like to put money aside for my grandkids' college. I only have...
Me too.
You know,
well, I was going to say it, right?
I know. I gave you just the briefest of moments, but you were trying to use some sort of comedic timing. I tried to ruin it.
Me too.
I only have one grandchild now. Oh, there was no comment there.
No, I don't know this person, so I'm not hating on them yet. Okay.
I only have one. Oh, you will now. I only have one grandchild now, but would expect to have more in the coming years. More.
Woohoo!
Should I put it in a 529 account? If I do, can I use it for all grandkids or just one? And do I get a tax benefit, or is there a better way?
Well,
that's a lot of questions.
Well, you're closer to the parent part than I am. I'm closer to the grandparent part at this moment than you are. So let me try to answer this one if I may, and you'll fill in for me.
Closer is relative, but yes, please proceed.
Yeah. I mean, look, 3 days visiting temple is enough, okay? So
in prayer, I get it.
Yeah, so I would say that, one of the great parts about 529 is that it works very similar to a Roth in that contributions that you make, they're non-deductible. The principal and interest, hopefully, that you're receiving is growing income tax deferred. And as long as that money is then used for educational purposes, it's tax-free when it comes out.
And the educational purposes can be rather varied. So that means if your grandchild decides to go to a trade school, if they are, for example, a photographer and they need a new camera, there is a lot of flexibility within the 529 plans. However, the main parameter is that it's for college expense or for educational expense.
Yes, and you can use it for more than one person if, in fact, you're not using it for one person. At the end of the day, though, does that make sense?
Well, I think we should step back one quick second, which is each 529 has to have one individual grandchild's name on it. However, if that grandchild doesn't use all of the money, or your grandchildren are spaced out enough where maybe one grandchild decided not to go to school or didn't use all of the funds you set aside, then you can change the name on the 529 account, but you can't have all, if you have multiple grandchildren, they all can't be listed on the same 529.
Well, thanks, babe. I appreciate that. That's a very good clarification. What I would suggest here is that you really need to think about control. In my mind, I think it makes more sense to retain those assets, set them aside, and not even necessarily in a custodial account, but to, as we're doing right now, earmarking them inside of a non-retirement account for clients for their grandchildren. And Aaron's doing some accounting for that.
And this is important that we differentiate that grandparents are the ones that this particular strategy would make sense for. And the reason for that is grandparents' assets aren't totaled into the parents' and child's assets when applying for FAFSA or scholarships or other assistance, whereas the parents' money is. So if you're a parent, you might not want to consider this particular option.
Yeah, and I think at the end of the day, if you retain that asset, what you're also able to do then is to determine really for what purpose, educational or otherwise, that you would want to use that money for and when. You're going to be paying taxes on any growth on it, but that's okay. You want to do that anyways, and then when that child gets it, they get it as a gift.
Right.
I think that's really, we need to close off this question because in about 6 seconds we're going to our break of the hour, and we'll be back with some more Straight Talk on Retirement after these messages.
The Big 550.
KTRS St. Louis.
From ABC News, I'm Brian Clark. A protest is planned for today in Minneapolis after a 22-year-old black man was fatally shot Wednesday by a SWAT team executing a warrant.
Amir Locke's mother, Karen Wells.
Never would I have imagined that I would be standing up here talking about the execution of my son by the Minneapolis Police Department.
Locke was shot while reaching for a gun after officers rushed into the apartment. His aunt, Linda Tyler.
Amir was a gun-carrying, licensed individual. NRA should be excited about that.
Locke had no criminal history, according to family attorneys. The Minneapolis mayor imposing a moratorium on no-knock warrants. Chuck Severson, ABC News.
Friday, former Vice President Mike Pence delivered one of his most direct rebuttals so far towards former President Trump and his false claims about the 2020 election.
President Trump is wrong. I had no right to overturn the election. The presidency belongs to the American people and the American people alone.
He was speaking to the Federalist Society in Florida. Russian President Vladimir Putin traveled to China for the opening ceremony of the Olympics. He met with Chinese leader Xi Jinping, and the two released a joint statement criticizing future NATO expansion in Europe. All this amid questions about Russia's military buildup near Ukraine as the U.S. sends forces to European allies. More from ABC's Patrick Reevell in Kiev.
In the snow in western Ukraine, American soldiers training with Ukrainian troops, members of Florida's National Guard showing them the ropes with U.S.-supplied weapons. Bunker-busting rockets, part of the Biden administration's efforts to reinforce Ukraine amid fears of Russian invasion.
Friday, the U.S. saw another grim milestone of the pandemic, more than 900,000 reported deaths, the most of any country. You're listening to ABC News.
You probably wouldn't leave thousands of dollars on the table at a diner. Why leave thousands on the table with your tax return? Jackson Hewitt will help make sure you don't. This year, there are thousands of dollars worth of new tax credits. Your Jackson Hewitt Tax Pro will help you track down every last one, so you get your biggest refund guaranteed. Don't leave thousands on the table this year. Discover thousands of dollars in tax credits instead. Learn more at jacksonhewitt.com.
Time is running out on your chance to enter the Rocket Mortgage Super Bowl Squares sweepstakes. Every time the score changes, somebody's going to win $50,000. That means every touchdown, field goal, 50 G's. Plus, 2 grand prize winners will win $500,000 they could use toward their dream home. Get in the game today. See rules.
No purchase necessary. Legal residency for 50 U.S. and D.C. of age of majority. Ends 11/11/22. Equal housing letter licensed all 50 states. NMLS number 3030. The NFL entities will not offer a sponsor promotion in any way.
At the Winter Olympics, the U.S. women's ice hockey team, looking for a second straight gold medal, beat a team of Russian athletes 5-0 in a preliminary round game. A woman was kidnapped this week from a Colorado ranch owned by billionaire and former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg. And court documents say the woman abducted worked for Bloomberg. ABC's Phil Lipoff has more.
Investigators say the suspect, Joseph Beecher, was carrying an AR-15 and a handgun when he was arrested. Now he's charged with kidnapping in federal court. According to court documents, Beecher was looking for Bloomberg's daughters and wanted to, quote, make an international scene.
Investigators say they were able to trace the woman's iPad to a motel in Cheyenne, Wyoming, where she was being held. The head of one of the nation's largest airlines wants the government to do more to stop cases of unruly passengers.
They've become relatively regular occurrences, especially since masks have been required on board. Unruly passenger cases have exploded since the beginning of the pandemic. Now, in a letter reviewed by ABC News, Delta Airlines CEO Ed Bastian is asking U.S. Attorney General Merrick Garland to put unruly passengers who are convicted on a no-fly list that would bar them from flying on any U.S. airline. Currently, unruly passengers are barred from flying on that airline. Delta says it has banned 1,900 passengers for refusing to wear masks on board. Alex Stone, ABC News.
This is ABC News.
Got a party of 10 coming in, and we need to flip those 2 tables.
Leah's restaurant is fully booked night after night.
Section 3 is still behind.
She no longer has reservations about finally finding a hostess.
Why doesn't 23 have menus? Oh, Put it in my hand.
Indeed can help her hire great people fast.
I need Indeed.
Indeed you do. Instant Match instantly connects you with quality candidates whose resumes on Indeed match your sponsored job description. Visit Indeed.com/credit and get $75 towards your first sponsored job. Terms and conditions apply.
Brian Clark, ABC News.
Let's talk about smart choices for your money. It's Straight Talk and Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here's Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
Well, we're back here on the Big 550 KTRS, Talk Radio St. Louis. I'm Jeff Lapidus, the retirement coach.
I'm Aaron Lapidus, the retirement coach, and I have excellent news. Just as the text line has died down, we have Frank in the studio with us.
Good morning.
Fabulous Frank. Good morning. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Good morning.
Good morn.
So glad that we were able to get you out of bed and into the studio to talk a little bit about making smart choices about your health care.
Sponsored this week and every single week by our good friends at Aetna and Anthem of Missouri.
Thank you so much for our sponsors. Frank, what do you got on your mind today?
Well, today I thought that I would actually give a scenario that I actually had happen to me a couple of weeks ago. I had a gentleman named Tom give an office the call. Now, Tom has been on Medicare for about 3 years now, but he's heard about these enrollment periods and some changes that I'll go into detail about have happened to his plan. And basically his question to me was, is it too late to make changes to my Medicare this year? So Tom comes to me. Again, he's been on Medicare Parts A and B for the last 3 years. Okay, he has a Medicare Advantage plan, a PPO plan. Now, Tom has never really had to use his plan. He's basically, been one of the lucky ones that he's on this $0 premium plan, hasn't really had to go to the doctor and use the plan. So he's not making, a lot of copays to go towards that max out of pocket that you work for with a Medicare Advantage plan. So that's excellent news. I love hearing that. So his question to me was he had went to see one of his specialists, and he actually found out that his specialist was not in network for this year.
Oh, no.
Yeah. So, again, Tom has never really done a review, so he's never been, confronted with something like this within his plan. He didn't even know that, the doctors in the network could actually leave the plan.
So he said, and, we talk to people that come to see us very often about this, which is, we don't want you to have to use the plan, but we definitely encourage you to use the plan in a normal way, going to your primary however many times you normally would, maybe checking out the specialist, especially in the first year when you're using the plan, so you can kind of get a feel for it and get into the rhythm of potentially having those reviews.
Exactly, and that's exactly what Medicare actually suggests you do every year in these open enrollment period times, is to do that review to make sure that your doctors are still in that network for you. And if they aren't in that network, then is it too late to really change your plan? Can you still make changes to your plan when you find out something like that happens?
Right, and we've talked many times about this. Medicare has several enrollment periods. The first being your initial election, that's when you turn 65. And then once you're enrolled, your annual election period, which has now been dubbed open enrollment because that is reminiscent of when you were working for your an employer or you had the opportunity to make changes to your plan. They usually call that open enrollment. That's for everyone. You're on a supplement and a prescription drug plan. You're on a Medicare Advantage plan. That's that time that runs October 15th through December 7th. But now we're in another enrollment period, and this one is legitimately called the open enrollment period. This one runs from January 1st through March 31st. Is that correct?
That is correct. And like you said, this one is actually called the actual open enrollment period. So for folks like Tom that have never done a review and they've been on their plans for years, and maybe they want to see, maybe they even want to change doctors, or maybe they just want to make sure that their doctors are staying in network. This would be another enrollment period time in order for them to do something like that and check something like that.
And this one is essentially entirely restricted to individuals that are using Medicare Advantage plans. So it's going to give you the extra opportunity to review your coverage from January 1st to October 31st.
Exactly. Now, I mentioned earlier that Tom was on a PPO. But I also mentioned that his doctor was not in network under that PPO. So basically what happened is when Tom went to see that specialist and he found out that he wasn't in network, Tom had to pay a higher price or a higher co-insurance.
Exactly, because usually if you choose an in-network specialist, you have a defined copay. It could range anywhere from $25 to $45 depending upon which policy you happen to have elected. But if you fight the plan, as we like to say, and you're selecting an out-of-network physician, then you're subject to anywhere from 30 to 40% of the Medicare charges that specialist or even primary care doctor would charge.
Exactly. And sometimes those co-insurance percentages can be just like you said, 30 to 40%. That can get really expensive depending on what type of service that you get done at the doctor or hospital.
Right. Imagine if you had an out-of-network physician have to perform a procedure on you, or you elected to use that individual. We're not talking about a $150 doctor visit, which would work out to, around the copay that you would pay. You could be looking at hundreds of dollars.
Exactly. So although he does have that PPO, and although it does allow him to use that out-of-network, Tom is still not really wanting to pay those higher co-insurance prices whenever he can use this election period to find a Medicare Advantage plan that his doctors do accept.
Excellent. That's a really good point. And also, it's great that you have the opportunity to review this, because in many cases you can find a plan that will fit all of your physicians, and that'll just bring your costs down.
Exactly. So the first thing that I did want to address with Tom is exactly what we've been going over, and that is he does have an opportunity to change his plan. So during this time, this is when you're going to want to call. We'll send our questionnaire out to you. You'll just give us the information, your doctor's information, and your prescription information. And I can take that information and plug that into our database to make sure that those doctors are still in network for this year. And if you're in a particular case like Tom, to where those doctors are not in network, then we're going to find a network of doctors in a Medicare Advantage plan that go together.
That makes perfect sense. Also, it gives you the opportunity, even if maybe you're not in Tom's position where something significant has happened and oops, now a doctor's out of network. Maybe you're like Tom and you hadn't had a review, but you might want to hear about some of the benefit changes, especially if it's been over a couple of years. We've really seen enhancements through many of the Medicare Advantage plans, so maybe something has become more enticing to you.
Absolutely, and that is exactly what Medicare wants you to do, is to do those reviews just for instances like this. So his current election period right now, again, would be from January 1st to March 31st. Making changes to his plan, if we were to get him enrolled in a different Medicare Advantage plan, let's say for February, then his coverage would begin in March 1st. So there is no waiting period for changing these plans and making sure your doctors are in network.
And during the review, I'm sure you'll discuss with individuals, how much have you already spent this year on your current policy? Because if you might be in a situation like, let's say, for example, that Tom had been admitted to the hospital and he actually had to have some procedures done and he had already hit his maximum out of pocket, which is not common but not unheard of. So maybe you slipped and fell on all this ice or something like that. Well, if you've already hit your maximum out of pocket, that's not going to carry over for you. So you do want to make sure that you're discussing with Frank or whatever professional you go to visit with what you've already done on the plan, because you don't want to open up another bucket, like we like to say. So, if you had a Medicare Advantage plan that had a $2,800 out-of-pocket maximum, you hit that those dollars aren't carrying over with you to the next plan. So that means that you'll have to start paying again.
Exactly, and that's a great point. You will start over on those Medicare Advantage plans, and you'll also start over with those extra benefits as well.
Oh, that is a good point, too, which means that you might be able to gin the system a little bit. Let's say you've already been to the dentist and you utilize some of those dental benefits. Well, when you switch to the new plan, you get brand new dental benefits.
Oh, yeah.
So it's not, we don't like to play musical chairs unless it makes sense, but if it does make sense, let's maximize it for you. Especially if you're deciding to apply now, you've got a whole month to utilize those extra benefits and then start them all over again.
That's right. So with Tom, the reason that it would be in his best interest to maybe change plans this year is because the co-insurance price is under that PPO. Mm-hmm. If we can find Tom a plan better than or equal to what he has now with his Medicare Advantage plan, keeping him on Medicare Advantage plan, but making sure his doctor is in network so that he does not have to pay the 30 to 40% coinsurance every time he goes to a specialist, it's going to make sense to switch.
And there's probably are instances in where you've realized it doesn't make sense to switch, which is, maybe you're in a position where this one physician's out of network, but you only see him once a year, so that's going to be relatively inexpensive, but your prescriptions have a significant cost difference between policies. So you might make the decision after you've had the opportunity to have a review, and that's why we like to send out that questionnaire that includes physicians and prescriptions, so Frank can really compare, what's it going to cost on this policy, even factoring in maybe having to use coinsurance versus another policy.
Exactly. So if those medication prices are abundantly higher than what he's currently paying now on his Medicare Advantage plan compared to switching him to a different company, then I would just suggest, hey, let's just go ahead and pay this coinsurance price because, again, you're only seeing this specialist 2 times a year. So that's not going to equal the amount that you're going to be paying for your medications if you switch to another plan. And sometimes it can be exactly like that. So that's a great point.
Well, there are a lot of moving parts to these Medicare Advantage plans, which is why it's important to consult with someone before making an election or making a decision to switch. You may have heard of one and thought, oh, this is a great idea to make a change, but you definitely want to do a full review beforehand. And the other great thing is, it doesn't cost you anything to work with a professional. There's no charge to you. The professionals paid a commission, so the insurance company will foot that bill for you. There's no increased premiums for you or decreased of benefits by using an independent professional. And really, I would argue that it probably saved you some money because you got somebody doing all that research for you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And another thing that I wanted to mention to Tom, that I did mention to Tom in regards to saving money, was to actually look at a HMO option as well. So Aetna, they actually did away with their referral system for their gold HMO plan that is really great around the St. Louis area. Absolutely love that plan. They got away with their referral system for this year. So I was thinking, hey, if all of your doctors are in network with Aetna, let's go ahead and put you in an HMO. We'll save you money on your max out of pocket for the year, and you're not going to have to worry about paying a coinsurance because we know that your doctors are in network. I'm able to look that up for you.
So it feels like a PPO. However, you must stay in network with the HMO. So it kind of resembles what they would call an EPO, which is, you have a controlled network that you have to work within, but you don't need referrals to your specialist from the primary. So in someone like Tom's case, you see the specialist a couple times a year. If they happen to be in network for you, you're not going to feel any different on the PPO, except when you get towards that out-of-pocket maximum, which can be significantly lower for you on the HMO-style policies.
Exactly. Those HMO, those HMO max out-of-pockets typically start around $2,900 a year, to where your PPOs are typically $1,000 above that. So $3,900 up to $4,500. And then again, for those PPOs, you have to look at those out-of-network costs as well. And you're talking about up to $6,500 to $10,000 to use your PPO policy out of network.
Right. So as we like to say, we don't want you to fight the plan, which is another reason that it's important to have a review. Just because you can utilize those out-of-network benefits, we generally recommend that you choose a plan where you're using only the in-network benefits.
Exactly. And
I was going to just input at this point. It's so interesting to me that the networks, whether it's Aetna's, whether it's United Healthcare, whether it's whomever it is, offering through these plans, they're so robust at this point that most of the folks that we're visiting with, the real question is, do I want to pay for the privilege of having the flexibility of going to doctors that I may never see? And I think many folks, I'm sure, we saw this metamorphosis occur in the corporate healthcare markets like 20 years ago, where they got rid of, where you had a network, they got rid of the referral requirements, and it just made it so much more user-friendly, which makes sense. At the same time, like you said, don't fight the system. If your physicians are all in network and they're going to obviously give you referrals if you need specialists to other specialists that are also in network. There's no reason to go. There's no reason to go outside the book. It's like the old Yellow Pages ads. Use the book.
Right. It's an online system now, though, but still, nonetheless, use the online book. I agree.
Yeah, the only other comment I was going to make is, Frank, I think, with Tom's situation, these physician changes, whether people are not in the book or they go into the plan, they are made available to you, but these things, they contract once a year. So I'm sure that there's sometimes timing issues. What I think is probably more important for our listeners, or at least as important for our listeners to consider here, is these prescription changes. Each of these carriers makes deals with the prescription drug purveyors in terms of creating what they call their formulary lists, and they do change. The tiers change, the providers change, and if you see that happen, you don't have to deal with it, right? I mean, you can certainly give Frank a call. We can look at the other plans, make sure that we're getting one that fits you correctly, and correctly being you're paying the least amount you can out of your pocket because, as you know, the insurance companies don't like to give money back.
That's a great point, because we definitely see frequently that annually the tiers change for sometimes what people would consider, very common medications. That's, the insurance companies use ways to create cost-cutting measures for themselves, and that happens to be one of them. So you're right. Physicians are very important, but prescriptions sometimes seem to be the what tips the scale.
Exactly. And I think to Jeff's point, he made a great point. No matter what time of the year it is, no matter what enrollment period we're in, give me a call, send me an email. If we're 6 months out, I have folks that I work with we're 6 months out from Medicare. I have folks that I work with, we're 30 days away from Medicare. So no matter the time period, give me a call. I can check those medications for you. I can check those formularies for you, and we can make sure that you're paying the absolute least cost amount for your Part D.
Absolutely. Or worst case, you're just on the list to have a call right away when the annual election period starts this October, and we can make sure that, next year is less expensive than this year if we've exceeded an enrollment period or if you're not eligible for that particular enrollment period. But excellent topic for this morning. Very timely, since we still have about, almost 2 months to go through this election period. If people are looking to make changes, please give Frank a call at 314-863-0008 or send him an email, Franklin, L-I-N, at jblfinancial.com.
Yeah, another great segment, Frank. Thank you so much for participating with us this morning. And I would say one thing that, honey, we don't do. We don't really toot our horn here too much. Over a year, literally, Frank is enrolling people almost one person a day.
Yep.
So this is a very core thing for us, and naturally for our investment advisory clients, it's just so critical. Understanding what your costs are, planning for those costs, and then secondarily, and something you guys didn't touch on this morning. If Tom had been a client of ours and he had seen this change occur, or he'd seen a medication change occur, we would have been right on top of it, making those changes. And I know, honey, in the past you've had some situations where you've had to make appeals to the insurance companies for folks in regard to medications they've had. We have that whole service facility behind us, so that even though Medicare is a lot more user-friendly than private insurance companies are, we're there to take care of those claim problems, because the truth is we're on the payroll. We're your agents, and what happens is we get paid each year that you renew your plan, as well as to help you when you initiate the plan. Just real important.
That is a great point. We are here to help with all that service work. I like to say, if you're working with Frank, you can give him a call for anything from your name is spelled wrong on the card, all the way to, Frank, you told me that the maximum out of pocket's $2,800. Why did I get a bill for $28,000?
Let's hope that never happens.
Right. Usually those things, and I like to say that we offer this service to everyone because we do, but the great thing is, just like my dad said, Medicare is very user-friendly. So in a lot of cases, once you're enrolled, the most important job Frank does for you every year is make sure you're enrolled in the right plan. We don't really see a lot of claims issues with Medicare, which is very nice. All right. Well, thank you, Frank. It was great seeing you this morning, and I think it's time for our first break of the hour.
Well, thank you all, and I look forward to hearing from you all.
Yes. I'm Erin Lapidus, the retirement coach.
And I'm Jeff Lapidus, the retirement coach as well.
We'll be right back.
Catch your St. Louis ambush at the Family Arena Friday the 11th at 7:35 p.m. against the Chihuahua Savage. And then again on Saturday the 12th at 7:05 p.m. versus Utica City FC with an alumni game at halftime. Tickets available at the arena box office or at Ticketmaster.com.
What's all the buzz about nasal irrigation and Navage? And should I try it? Here's the science. Airborne germs invade through your nose. It's the body's air filter for trapping allergens and viruses. When your nose gets clogged, it's less effective and germs multiply. Eventually, your immune system can get overwhelmed and you get sick. Nasal irrigation is an effective, all-natural way to clean your nose. It's not a drug. It's more like plumbing. Saline goes in one nostril, around the back of the nose, and out the other nostril, flushing out mucus and germs. I'm Martin Hoke, and I invented Navage to make cleaning your nose easy. It's the world's only nose cleaner with powered suction. Navage pulls out the bad stuff so you can breathe better, sleep deeper, snore less, and feel healthier. At Walgreens, CVS, Rite Aid, Target, Bed Bath, and Walmart. Or go to Navage.com for a free gift with purchase. Over 2 million sold. Navage, N-A-V-A-G-E. Clean nose, healthy life.
Hi, I'm Brandon McGraw, owner of the Quarter Restaurant and Bar in downtown Belleville. I want to personally thank all of our customers and staff for voting us as the #1 restaurant bar that opened in 2021 in the Metro East. It's truly an honor. If you haven't tried us yet, come visit us for some New Orleans-inspired meals. And of course, to try one of our amazing Hurricanes cocktails or beers. Let us take you on a trip to New Orleans right here at home. The Quarter Restaurant and Bar is located at 126 East Main Street in downtown Belleville, Illinois. For operating hours and menu, go to quarterrestaurant.com.
Do you want an exciting and rewarding career in law enforcement? I'm Florissant Police Chief Tim Fagan, and we are looking for qualified candidates who have the skill and determination to succeed in the exciting profession of law enforcement. Our internationally accredited police department prides itself on keeping current on the most advanced and up-to-date training methods available. We offer excellent pay, top-notch benefits, and the loggers retirement system. The Florissant Police Department provides the highest level of services to our community with an emphasis on integrity, fairness, and professionalism. Come join our team. Go to florissantmo.com to apply.
This is Jeff Lapidus, the retirement coach. Wouldn't it be great to have a game plan, a real strategy, so that no matter what was going on in the stock market, the economy, or the world, that you could be confident about your retirement? Wouldn't that be great? If you're within 5 years of retirement, call me today at 314-863-0008. That's 314-863-0008. Or send me an email, jeff@jblfinancial.com, to arrange your free coaching session. Let's get started on your retirement game plan today.
Now back to Straight Talk and Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here's Jeff and Erin Lapidus.
Well, it's N28 here on the Big 550 KTRS. I'm Jeff Lapidus, the retirement coach.
I'm Erin Lapidus, the retirement coach.
We're willing, waiting, and we're wanting, and we have been answering your questions at 931-5877, star 5877 from your cell phones, or 84126 from the endless well this morning. Excellent. So, babe,
it's quieted down this morning at the 10:28 hour, but that's okay because we have a few things that we'd love to discuss with all of you.
Absolutely. And the first topic that we were going to discuss this morning was a simple question. Does it make sense for us to get married? Now, honey, I know the answer to that question because I'm already married, but for you, the answer is yes.
Well, that's good since I did agree to it already.
Yeah. It's about time. You've been holding out on me, so I do appreciate that as well.
It's about time, you say, on the rate. People are gasping here in the studio. at the boldness of
I
this.
don't think that they're gasping. I think
gasping.
They're smiling. Eric, are you gasping? Or
he can't
smiling?
answer you. He's gasping.
He's passed. He's laying down. He's laying down on the floor, laughing his head off. Is what he's doing.
Probably at how bold you are.
Eric.
Yes.
Well, every
lucky
year
I
we
love
visit.
You.
Well, you're welcome. You're lucky.
You're
I made
welcome.
You, so.
This is the thanks.
Thank you. Well, every year we visit with folks who are either widowed, in many cases, divorced or single, and they found a significant other, and they ask this question. What's interesting is in most cases they both have money. They're not getting married for financial reasons. They have their independence, and in many cases they also have grown children, whether they act like it or not when they're co-hosting the show on the radio with their father.
Act
on
like it
one
or
not.
both
sides, yes.
Mm-hmm.
And there are a couple of things to consider here, right?
That's right. And the first thing is taxes, the great, and very timely since we've had quite a few tax questions this morning. The great thing is that the new tax plan has essentially gotten rid of the marriage penalty, as one used to call it. Now, if you're single or married, single status is essentially 50% of the married filing jointly status, as opposed to having an additional tax.
Yes, and the other side is that we know the federal state tax limitations have been raised to 11+ million, indexed for inflation, each year. So as a married couple, you can have basically a total of 22 million that you can give away to your loved ones at your passing. The second one is Social Security benefits. Being married does create multiple opportunities for both spouses, and also it certainly creates opportunities once you're married for the possibility for survivor benefits.
That's right. So with being married, you have the opportunity to elect the spousal benefit, which is while your spouse is living, depending upon what your benefit is. But then, as long as you've been married for at least one day before your spouse passes away, you'd be eligible for the survivor benefit, which is the benefit that you're able to elect when your spouse is no longer living.
Yeah, and what's, in that case, in most cases, what occurs is that survivor benefit is equal to your spouse's full Social Security benefit. And that can be significant. And also it obviously creates planning opportunities, especially if you're currently working or not taking your Social Security benefit. You can then put yours off maybe to a time, if it happens before you're age 70, where your benefit actually exceeds that survivor benefit, and you can then switch over that benefit. So those are a couple of the real big things to do. But it's all about money. None of it's about love. But there are a couple of other issues that I think you really need to consider and ask yourself in this process. The first one is, are we a two-bucket family ready to become a one-bucket family? And what I mean here is that as you've been living independently, you've been paying your own expenses, do you become that two-bucket? Do you retain that status as a two-bucket family, maybe contributing something to a common bucket to pay for common expenses? Or are you truly going to combine your family's incomes and really truly become a one-bucket family? Not an easy choice.
Certainly not an easy choice. And also we see all different variations of what happens when you become a one-bucket family. Sometimes it still looks a little bit like two buckets. You plan to share everything. You plan to pass your assets on to each other, but maybe like one spouse is still footing the bill for the mortgage and the other one picks up the fun and entertainment side of things. Or you have some other division of how you pay the bills, which might not be the conventional ideas you get when you get married. Then you just pay everything out of a joint checking account, which sometimes happens when you're younger or you're on a first marriage.
Yes, and I think even further, and folks don't really consider this generally at the beginning because they're in love. Okay, and really probably the question that I'm always asking is, will my surviving spouse require income and or assets to maintain their lifestyle after my death? And then secondarily, how is this going to change, if it will change, the distribution pattern of assets after death? Most folks coming into the situation, at least we've seen it, as you get here, will say there are variations. They'll say mine is mine go to my children, and yours go to your children. But really what we're looking here is by getting together, and maybe there is a discrepancy in income between the two spouses, do we need to maintain an income stream for them if the first one passes away? And then basically, how does that affect the asset distribution plan in terms of not only how it gets distributed, but when it gets distributed?
Right, which is important to consider. I mean, we might, you think of it on the income side, but also that's reflective of the expenses. So, if you were single, obviously you were single prior to getting married, most likely. Well, maybe you had less expenses than you will have in your new living situation. Maybe you've moved into a larger house and you have a larger mortgage than you originally had. Those are all things to consider when we're talking about assets for the survivor.
Right, and there are other considerations here too, which is one of the spouses passes away. What happens with the house? Does the surviving spouse, are they permitted to continue to live there, or do they have to move? At least in, we'll call it the old days, the pre-IRA days, the last generation, the house is usually people's greatest asset. It's not really the case anymore. If that house is a significant portion of the inheritance to be received by children and or grandchildren, do we have to make them wait? Do we want to make them wait until the surviving spouse actually passes away?
And that provides a lot of planning opportunities, because maybe we can find the best of both worlds there through alternative assets being passed on to the grandchildren or children right away, or utilizing life insurance to do the same.
Yes, I had an interesting situation yesterday with one of our clients who there was a discrepancy in age between the spouses, but the truth is that the older spouse wasn't, he was just a couple of years older than me. So
he was very old.
Well, he was almost a grown-up, because he hadn't reached the age where he has to take required minimum distribution. But we were having a discussion about estate planning, and what it came down to was, and as you know, I like to talk about this with our clients during the review sessions. But about 18 months ago, I had this epiphany in the shower, which is where I do most of my deep thinking. Is that you and your sister, God willing, aren't going to be receiving assets from your mom and I, our estate that is, until you're truthfully our age. And if we do have grandchildren, which you create versus me having to go out and buy.
I don't know if the regulators are going to approve that.
Well, I didn't say we were going to use client assets to buy these kids. I mean, they would have to come from my pocket. But I'm hoping that you'll save me a few dollars on this.
Oh, right.
Exactly. So, do I want to make my grandchildren have to wait until their parents, who are my age, and theoretically then they're becoming their grandchildren have grown up to be their age, or my age, etc.
I feel really comfortable with making them wait. Well,
I can appreciate that. The grandparents didn't, and
Fair.
They said, obviously, we would like to make sure that our grandchildren receive money, and frankly, we love our children, but do we really trust them to pass on these assets? And number two, how effective is it tax-wise for them to do that?
It's very controlling.
Honey, I think what most folks, I'm sure that as they're listening to the conversation, hopefully they're getting a few smiles out of it. This isn't something that we talked about 40 years ago, or truthfully up until 2020 with most folks, because we know that the way the laws were created, when children generally received IRA assets from their parents, in these beneficiary IRAs, they could take out required minimum distributions based on their age, and they could do so successfully for their entire lifetimes, and those IRAs wouldn't be exhausted. In the previous generation, if you were lucky, what you got from mom and dad was a couple of CDs in the house.
Right, because they didn't need to accumulate as many assets. They usually retired on pension and Social Security, and now that defined benefit is given way to defined contribution, we're seeing
you're right.
large
and what
amassing.
happens is, IRAs weren't invented. They really didn't, and 401ks didn't really start coming into their prime here until 1990. So my grandparents never had a chance to do IRAs, and frankly, this generation, I happen to be towards the younger, hard for you to believe, part of the baby boomer side is that, we only had, in theory, as of today, maybe 30 years to do IRA planning and 401k planning, whereas you and obviously any generations that follow you, that's going to be their primary way of saving. So we didn't think about this.
And now the IRS has completely changed the game. The government completely changed the game in that, as opposed to having the opportunity to distribute those beneficiary IRAs over the course of your beneficiary's life, they're now going to be required to take all of that within 10 years.
That's correct. And I was going to say that, in this situation, my thought was, and something we had discussed with the client, they had life insurance policies. And so if there was a situation here where, and these weren't a second marriage, but they wanted to get some money to their children or to their grandchildren, if they had sufficient assets which could provide an income flow for them as well as their surviving spouse, maybe they didn't need this capital. And maybe this would be a way for them to get some capital to that next generation so that it would be okay to wait. And our clients are thinking about this, and as you know, with your mom and I, we made some changes to do that because we felt it made sense that why wait for you all to get our life insurance proceeds rather than getting them when you need it, and hopefully at a time where you're in lower tax brackets than we are. When you get into you're getting into your late 50s, early 60s, you're in your highest income earning years. Those children, grandchildren, if they're in their 20s, 30s, etc., as I like to say, they're broke. They're like everybody else was. They have more obligations than they do have money in the bank. And so being able to now be in a position where we really can take that money and put it to work and financially enable those people really makes a lot of sense to me. So, this whole getting married thing, it's very complicated. And, not only between the two of you and maintaining lifestyle, but also going further. And I know that we'd like to go into detail a little bit more about this and talk a little bit about one of our clients, Joe, who happens to be a retired police officer here in the city, and his wife, Sally, who was a research assistant in a very large manufacturing facility here in St. Louis that was purchased, and their logo looks like a big aspirin, right?
That was a great description without using the name. Nice work.
Well, thank you, babe. I appreciate that. So I was going to say, why don't we take our last break of the hour, and we come back, we'll talk a little bit more about Joe and Sally, and naturally we'll be here to answer your questions and your texts at 931-5877, star 5877 from your cell phones, or 84126 from the text line. I'm Jeff Lapidus, the retirement coach.
I'm Erin Lapidus, the retirement coach.
We'll be right back.
Diana from Newstetter's Fine Jewelers here to remind you, we don't just offer the best pieces, we offer one of the last master hand engravers in our country. My father can create timeless, personal, and unforgettable pieces. Come by our showroom at the corner of Big Ben and Doherty Ferry, or learn more online at wowdiamonds.com.
When opened 50 years ago, Royal Banks of Missouri wanted to help the people within the communities we serve. Today, we're still locally owned and still investing in the future of our communities. We support many local organizations with not only donations, but our resources and time. We're very proud to be your community bank. Call 314-212-1500. Royal Banks of Missouri is investing in St. Louis. Member FDIC and equal housing lender.
Looking for something different to try out? The Quarter Restaurant and Bar, located in downtown Belleville, was voted #1 in the Metro East for Best New Restaurant in 2021. Known for our New Orleans-inspired dishes with food for all taste buds, you're sure to find something for the whole group. We have a variety of beers on tap and huge hurricanes for that extra boost. Come enjoy a bit of New Orleans for your next dining experience. Come visit the Quarter Restaurant and Bar, located at 126 East Main Street in downtown Belleville, Illinois. For operating hours and menu, go to quarterrestaurant.com.
It's 2022 and it's time to head to the country, Sapod GM Country. Hi, this is Tiffany Sapod Charlottesville. Here at Sapod GM Country, we are proud to be Missouri's only GM dealership with all 4 GM lines all at one location and new 22s arriving daily. Here at Sapod, we remain committed to our local community and we are so proud to be a supporter of Backstoppers. Find new roads and visit sapod.com. We're off I-55 at the Herculaneum Auto Mall exit.
Sapod GM Country.
This is Erin Lapidus, the retirement coach. Wouldn't it be great to have a game plan, a real strategy, so that no matter what was going on in the stock market, the economy, or the world, you could be confident about your retirement? Wouldn't that be great? If you're within 5 years of retirement, call me today at 314-863-0008. That's 314-863-0008. Or send me an email at aaron@jblfinancial.com to arrange your free coaching session. Let's get started on your retirement game plan today.
Now back to Straight Talk and Retirement on the Big 550 KTRS. Here's Jeff and Aaron Lapidus.
Well, we're back for our last segment here on the Big 550 KTRS. It's been, so far, an hour and 45 minutes of fun.
Yes, it has.
We're willing, we're waiting, and we're wanting to answer your calls and your text questions at 931-5877, star 5877 for your cell phones, or 84126 from the text line. You know, before the break, we started having a discussion, and truthfully, it's fun. You know, there are situations where we do have clients who become widows or widowers. They meet somebody else. They got divorced, maybe. They met someone else, and they want to start a life together, which is great. But there are financial things they have to deal with, as well as legal issues. Not only with existing, you know, what do you do with the existing spouse, in terms of inheritances with their children, et cetera, both sides of the family. Do we need to provide financial support for that surviving spouse, et cetera? And there are a lot of economic reasons, whether it's Social Security, whether it's pensions, et cetera. And so I thought it might be nice to talk a little bit about a situation that we had the other day with Joe the policeman. You know, we love police officers. They obviously provide a really valuable and important function in society. And I would tell you that I've never met a policeman I didn't like. I mean, they're all very. I mean, they're just wonderful people. They're great to work with, and truthfully, they've been great savers. And it's just a lot of fun. So let's talk a little bit about Joe the policeman and Sally, who works for the company that looks like that has a big aspirin for their logo.
Well, Joe has an estate of about $1 million. $800,000 of that is in retirement assets. His Social Security benefit is $2,400 a month, and he has 3 children from his previous marriage.
And Sally, you know, she's a few years younger. She's 59. She works as a research assistant at this large chemical company in Creve Coeur. She has an estate of about $700,000, of which most of those assets, $600,000, are in her 401k plan. She also has a Social Security benefit of about $1,000 a month at age 67. She received most of her assets, though, through a divorce many years ago, and they currently live separately. But Sally would like to retire at the end of the year when she turns 59 and a half. And, of course, they're going to be the Brady Bunch because she has 2 children. So we got 3 on one side and we've got 2 on the other. Based on our analysis of their situation and Sally retiring, and then obviously Joe retiring sometime in the future, they're rock stars, which is great. They have more income. They have more cash flow than they need to make their life work. So my question is, why not just keep having fun together? Why tie the knot?
Well, the first thing that I noticed was that Sally might have the opportunity to have a higher Social Security benefit if she does decide to marry Joe, which is her current benefit at 67 is $1,000 a month. However, if she were able to elect Joe's the spousal benefit off of Joe's Social Security benefit at 67, Sally would actually be eligible for $1,200 a month because that's 50% of Joe's benefit.
That's a good one. And then certainly if she does outlive Joe, her Social Security benefit would grow to $2,400 per month, giving her more living income. Now, we don't know what her we don't know if she was actually divorced or had been married for 10 years or more, where she could be eligible for the survivor benefit, I believe, on her ex-spouse's benefit.
No, that would be the spousal benefit on her ex-spouse requires a 10-year.
Gotcha.
But also, if you're, but if potentially, if Sally were a widow, for example, if she is to remarry, she'll no longer be eligible for the survivor benefit. So that's something important to consider as well.
Yeah, that's a big deal. Joe also owns a home that's worth about $450,000 today. It's appreciated in value over $250,000. So if they were married and eventually sold the home, they wouldn't have to worry about any capital gains taxes because their exemption would go from $250,000 up to $500,000.
Right, because you have an individual exemption of $250,000, which it sounds like Joe has already hit that number. So if his house appreciates any more than that, he will owe capital gains taxes. He'll owe taxes on the difference between the $250,000 and whatever additional proceeds he receives. But if Joe and Sally are married, then that $250,000 doubles to the $500,000, which in most cases we find it's pretty hard for a house to appreciate that much, where you would exceed the $500,000 exemption.
Certainly, because, again, you do get to add the improvements that you made to the home to the basic purchase price on top of that $500,000. So, again, we kind of come back to our basic questions. Does either spouse need any portion of the deceased spouse's income to maintain their lifestyle? And does that require passing assets to that spouse or providing an income stream? There are many ways that we can do this. In some situations, it may require maybe that a trust is created where those assets are maintained in control of the deceased spouse's estate so that they don't really leave their side of the family, but providing that income stream to that surviving spouse during her life, his or her lifetime. And that's an important consideration. It doesn't necessarily require that control, like as an example with an IRA asset, go directly to that surviving spouse, because we know it's a little different. If it's a beneficiary IRA, the IRS looks at it as if it's not really their assets, it's still really the deceased person's assets. Whereas under, if you're married, you could assume your spouse's IRA assets and include them into yours without any tax situation. But again, you lose control.
Right, because basically what that means is the last person standing gets to decide what happens to all of the assets. So if Joe left all of his IRA assets, those $800,000 directly to Sally, the nice thing is at Joe's passing, there's no taxation in order for Sally to assume the assets. She'll have to start making distributions when she gets to 72 based on the entire amount. But also what Joe's done then is just pray that Sally is going to pass those assets on the way that he would like when she passes away.
Right, and obviously we haven't talked about prenuptial agreements, which is one way that can solidify things at the same time, make planning a little bit sometimes easier, sometimes more difficult. And then our second question is, what about the kids? I mean, you've got kids on both sides of the family. Do we want to make those children of the deceased spouse wait until the surviving spouse passes away for them to get their inheritance? And, even complicating things further, what about grandkids? Do we want to make them wait? And we know because of the changes in the IRA laws, as we talk about, and we will continue to talk about, it now makes more sense to pass a portion of your IRA assets on to your grandchildren. They'll be inheriting them at lower personal tax rates, still having to do a 10-year distribution. But this is certainly one way, and we think at least, that we can really maximize the passing of wealth between generations. Why make those grandkids wait until, frankly, they're as old as their grandparents are when they actually do inherit those assets? So those are some kind of big considerations that we have. And then the last thing would be is, do we need to consider creating additional capital at the death of the first spouse to achieve these goals? Aaron mentioned this earlier. Life insurance can be a very valuable tool in creating cash exactly when it's needed at that time. And whether, in this case, Joe might consider using existing life insurance to create a partial inheritance for those kids, or frankly, maybe even using that life insurance to create capital for Sally so that he can then pass on those assets to those children or grandchildren, and not having to wait for them to pass before Sally passed away, are really things to consider. I mean, these are all important, and frankly, everybody's situation is a little different, and that's why I think sitting down with a professional, planning these things, talking about them, getting on the table before the blessed event occurs, you getting married, can be real important. And if nothing else, at least getting ready to see your other professional counsel, like your attorney, so that your documents can really reflect what your wishes are.
It's a great point. You always want to consult with a professional, maybe multiple, before making a big decision like that, and also just making sure that your documents reflect your wishes. And also the titling of your assets, the beneficiaries on those assets, all of those things work together to make sure that your wishes are fulfilled after your passing or your spouse's passing.
And, it's interesting, honey, because, we've seen, and we do continue to see these situations occur, I would probably say at least 2-3 times a year. And they're all a little bit different. All spouses don't necessarily have equal assets. Sometimes we've even seen situations where both husband and wife decide, hey, one of these grandchildren maybe are special needs, and so we both agree that what we want to do is set aside assets to make sure that child or grandchild maybe is taken care of. And sometimes they're looking at situations saying, hey, across the group of our children, some are more financially successful, some are a little bit less financially successful. Do we need to change the emphasis in our planning for them? Difficult decisions, no rules of thumb. They really come down to what I like to say is baggage. Every person brings their own perspective to the situation. A lot of it is because of your parents' perspective, how you were treated, maybe how they were treated by their parents. And this goes even as far as things like college educations. Do we participate? Do we not participate with loans, et cetera? So, frankly, this is the fun, in my mind, of being an advisor. Being invited on this journey helping folks work through these decisions. And again, they're always uniquely theirs. And I love it because we become the enablers.
That's right. It's nice to be able to hear being able to put pen to paper for people and help them achieve the goals that they want, not only in retirement, but, after they've done enjoying their retirement and it's time to pass the assets on. And sometimes that's, creating a scheme in life or afterlife.
Yeah, and I think here, and though it isn't being discussed a lot, and we are talking with all of our clients about it, is that, this changes that have happened in the IRA laws just affect generationally, in my mind, it's really maybe the biggest change that's really happened in the last 30 years.
That is true. So with that, we will see everyone for our show next week.
The opinions voiced in this show are for general information only and are not intended to provide specific advice or recommendations for any individual. To determine which investments may be appropriate for you, consult with your attorney, accountant, and financial advisor or tax advisor prior to investing. Securities offered through LPL Financial, member FINRA SIPC. Investment advice offered through Private Advisor Group, a registered investment advisor. Private Advisor Group and JBL Financial Services, Inc. are separate entities from LPL Financial.
Be listening next week at 9 for more Straight Talk on Retirement with your retirement coaches, Jeff and Aaron Lapidus, on the Big 550 KTRS.